Hello. Sorry.
Hey, there he is. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
There we go. Falcon stuff, huh?
Yeah, it's my high school stuff.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I got you. All right. Well, hey. And here we are. This is the Sky High and Fly podcast, Raise the Bar. I'm your host, Troy Haines, and we're joined today by Brandon Pottinger, who we talked to a couple years ago. And man, a lot of stuff has been happening with
Yeah.
you. Um, Fill us in. The last time I talked to you, you were going to a different school, I believe, and things you've moved and you got the under 20 championships. And so
Mhm.
tell us what's been going on for the last couple of years.
Um, Honestly, everything's been how do I explain it? Like kind of like a surreal feeling. Well, first, just being blessed and able to just compete at the Division 1 level. Like I know a lot of people always want to say that they got a chance to, but to actually be able to like live the dream that I've always dreamt of,
Mhm.
that was definitely cool. And then also, winning worlds, like another surreal moment. Like I went in, I think maybe I don't even think I was in the top 20. Like I wasn't even supposed to make the finals.
Uh-huh.
Another surreal moment. Um, and then just getting to college and then realizing, okay, like this is a new environment, this is new everything for you, like new training, new coaching, your body's changing, just like having to adjust. And
Right.
it's gonna sound insane, but from when I was in high school, from when I finished my first year of college, I think I put on maybe 20 to 25 pounds.
Hmm.
Um, so it's just like getting used to, okay, I'm a lot bigger than I was now. So my body composition is gonna be different over the bar. Like my timing, I'm gonna have to take off farther. I'm a lot stronger now. Like
Right.
stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. So we're refresh my memory because I went through and I'm looking back and I didn't take a lot of notes or anything like that. And then it's been a while. Where did you go to high school? You said you're representing with your Falcons on your
Yeah.
chest. Where was that?
Palmer Trinity. It was in Miami, Florida.
Okay, Palmer Trinity, Miami. And then you said after your first year of college, now you didn't go straight to Tennessee, did you?
Oh yeah, I did.
You
Well,
did.
initially, I did because my head coach was initially committed to North Carolina A&T, and then he had flipped over the summer. Actually, I think maybe a month before my orientation day. I
Uh-huh.
actually flipped up. So then just like not really going to the school that I thought I was always going to go to, just like that new environment, which is crazy because I ended up actually loving it here,
Mhm.
um, more than I ever imagined I would. I've met some of like the best people here, some of like the greatest like support staff just for
Uh-huh.
me.
Right.
Um, so I really like it here.
Okay. And then so you're talking about that body dimension change, Brandon, and that's a huge one. I don't know that a lot of high schoolers are prepared for that because nobody really sits there and tells you that it's coming, right? So,
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of a life experience thing to think, but it's like I think as a high schooler, we don't really. It's hard for us to look 5 years down the road. I know when I was 18, I didn't have any kind of vision like that. Like my only vision was I want to jump as high as possible, when I'm
mhm.
at UCLA, and I want to try to get to the Olympic trials. And I had those kind of visions. But when it came to just everyday stuff and life experience, it's just like I had no way to know that, my senior year, I was 6'3", 180, right? I played free safety on the football team. And my mom was always like, you shouldn't play football. You're going to get hurt. You're
It's
going to
the
die,
same.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, well, whatever. All my buddies and I played football. So, and I did. I got hurt a few times, but never anything, career threatening. But still, I jumped my senior year at the Sunkist Invitational indoor meet with a broken hand from
Wow.
football. Just crazy stuff. So, but I was 6'3", 180, and then after 1 year at UCLA, I was 6'3" and a half, 195.
Yeah,
Like
it's
you're
crazy.
talking about that extra 15 pounds, and I couldn't get off the ground that freshman year. I mean, I was like a rock.
Oh my goodness. My freshman year, I felt like I think the heaviest I was last year was 181, which is insane because I went from consistently being like 150 all of high school, like just
Hmm.
on that range. So like getting to college being 181, I felt very fast. though. That's like one thing I can't say. I felt very powerful, but it just felt like my power to weight ratio wasn't there.
Right.
If that makes sense. Like like you said, like I just couldn't get off the ground.
Yeah, totally.
Compared,
It's different for everybody. I don't know if you're familiar with the Jumpman Westerner.
Mhm.
He when we did his podcast, he was telling me that he really likes jumping at 205 or 215, which is like he's 6'3" also. So he's routinely dunking from the free throw line, and doing all his stuff. And he's heavy, when he
Yeah.
does that. And he made the trials, back in 2021, 7'5 3/4. So, you know, I my experience was that strength to weight ratio is everything.
Mhm.
Like, I didn't get off the ground again. Like I said, my freshman year was terrible. And then when I really got in the weight room, I mean, I kind of got in the weight room as a freshman, but I got in the weight room and got my full squats up to 400 pounds. And then I jumped over 7 feet, so it was, for me, it was definitely, the power to weight ratio. It was monumental. I never had any speed, so I can't attest to you getting faster because I was never. I played free safety with a 5 flat 40, so that's pretty terrible. I look like Tom Brady at the combine.
Were you so you would say that you're more of a power jumper than a speed jumper?
Yeah. That's you're bringing up an interesting topic. I'm getting ready to. I think I posted my first rant on a podcast where I didn't have a guest. I just started talking about power versus speed. So, absolutely. And my experience is that power guys, by my definition, are kind of moving slower. They're not using speed to get off the ground so much. However, and I would also put power jumpers in the category almost always of two arm, gather and jump types. Like I was looking at your feed and I saw your jumps and I'm like, oh yeah, power guy for sure. And interestingly though, you do change your sync to a single arm kind of reach for the heel, a la, Bondarenko and Drown. And I love that aspect because I think it's so much easier to let that arm go and reach
Yeah.
for the heel than it is to stop it and try to bring it back to your hips. And everybody's backside arm always seems to drop to their hips anyway. I've never seen anybody do the whole.
Like
Um,
full back.
yeah, I've tried to work on that. Have you ever done that? I've had people do the back arch in the pit, and then I'll try to do it off back overs. And I go, that position looks great, but it's really hard to do off a
Yeah.
full approach.
I've the only time I've ever done it is like on accident. I would kind of like was trying to well, I didn't get my hips square to the bar, so I knew I wasn't gonna get over it. So I kind of just threw myself over.
Right.
But no, it's definitely like I have seen a lot of people do it, especially like in high school.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was definitely power, and then I'm thinking back, like I don't know if I shared this on the rant or not, but I wouldn't say prejudiced, but I think I was kind of like just proud and kind of snooty in that I was always like, well, these single armors, from Europe, they're just, they're tall and they're skinny and they just kind of fall over the bar. I'd be looking at it, seeming like this one arm be reaching towards the pit.
It's insane,
And
but their entire body is just
yeah, and I'm like going, well, because I watched in '84, I was flirting with being able to make it to the trials. I think I jumped 218 for the first time, but the trial height was like 225, I want to say, 4.5 back then in 1984. And somebody told me, they go, hey, you jumped 7'2", which that was my year after having a terrible freshman year. So it was like I went from 6'10" in high school to 7'2", and I mean, the Olympics were not on my radar at that point. I was so happy to jump 7'2" because I was going to get a scholarship, and because I was a walk-on, and I was like, okay, I got over 7 feet. I got over 7'2", which was like got me a scholarship a little bit earlier than I thought. And then it was like, okay. So I kind of learned about what I would call resetting your goals right in the middle of a season, because everything had kind of gotten achieved. I was going to go to the Pac-12 championships. Well, then it was Pac-10 championships. And I didn't have an NC2A mark because back then you had to jump 3.5 just to go. There wasn't any regionals or anything like that. So, but that was all good. And it was like, okay, I want to go for the trials. Okay. And we'll try to jump 7'4.5. But the speed, power, and all that. I watched Mogenberg in '84 win the games, and he was 6'8", And I mean, dude, you said you were at 150. I think he might have been 6'8", 150. I mean, he was skinny. And it was like when he came off the ground, to me, he already looked like he was in layout.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm like, whatever. It wasn't until later when I saw some video of him, and you got to remember back in the 80s, there wasn't any video like you guys have now. Like Instagram has been awesome for me because I see so many things. I can take screenshots on my phone. I can slow it down, look at it frame by frame. Resolution's really, really good for the most part. We had video that was grainy. It was like you never saw things shot from good angles. You just never saw that much at all. The internet didn't exist. So, the stuff that we saw on Channel 7 doing the Olympics was just, they one shot here, one shot there. They never showed the whole competition. Yeah, here's Mogenberg. He's the guy that won. You see one jump, So when I saw him on video, I saw a knee drive angle that went up and across the hip, like almost as good as anything I've ever seen, maybe on par with Stephen Holm.
Ooh.
I've seen that knee come across like crazy. And I was like, wow, I've never seen that picture before. And he was going straight up, and I'm like, okay. So since then, this whole power versus speed thing, I've actually started on a campaign to create some single armors. And, mostly I've been able to do it with, the girls, like some tall, athletic volleyball, basketball kind of girls. And if I get them early enough, I don't have to teach them to do it so much. Like I'll just watch them the first time. And if they're already kind of close, I'm like, hey, just try to lead with this arm more,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. If they're already kind of naturally double, I'll leave them alone.
Just developing good habits early, definitely.
Oh,
Uh, like one of my teammates, actually, he's a freshman this year. His name is Grant Campbell, one of the most phenomenal high jumpers I've seen. He's
mm-hmm.
six, doesn't really talk much, but the kid can jump. And the way he just, like everything in terms of just the way when he takes off from the ground, how he holds his knee all the way. Like, I think we were jumping off the box from 6 on last Friday practice. And like I think the last attempt, we didn't even know this, but our coach put the bar to like 9 feet. And yeah, which is insane because
Right.
we were just jumping, like we weren't really thinking. Um, and he didn't push that much out the back. So when he took off from the box, he was kind of like he wasn't at the center, like he was closer towards the end of the
Right.
box. So he somehow jumped all the way from the bottom of the box, still had enough patience and course ability to just keep rising, keep rising, keep rising. Like I want to be able to do that so bad. But it's just like I understand it's something that you just have to do. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Um, but it's definitely something that I'm glad that I have a really good training partner that I can learn from.
Yeah.
I feel like every year I'm always learning, even though like I've been high jumping for maybe oof, 8, 9 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's always something I can learn from honestly anyone at this point. I'm
Yeah.
always open to suggestions.
Yeah, it's a great place to be in. The only thing that can, I think, confuse you is maybe having too much come in at any one time. But, I mean, you can tell almost right away if you're talking with someone if they know, what
But
you're talking about. And then you can kind of use the filter of, okay, who is this guy coached? Has he got anything going on? But yeah, it's interesting that you have a freshman, showing you some things that what you're talking about there, the knee ride. That's another one I'm going to do a rant on here sometime soon. The power versus speed. It's kind of easy to see, and there as much as we like to categorize things. I don't know if this has happened to you. I'm like, so my brain was like, well, all the power jumpers are awesome, and I go look at these lists. Sotomayor,
mm-hmm.
definite power jumper. He was I got to jump against him. I remember at least once, and it was pretty amazing. He just broken the world record. He came to UCLA. That's the only reason I got into the meet. One of those great humbling moments of all time. I don't know if I hope you never have one of these, but they were going down the list and they're going, and here he is, fresh from Cuba. He just broke the world record a couple weeks ago. Sotomayor is like, and they're going down the list, and it was Hollis Conway was there. He jumped 6'10" and a quarter, I think. Then or 7'10", sorry, Hollis, 7'10" and a quarter. I got to jump against him at NC2A finals, the only time I made it. And then Lee Balkin, teammate of mine at UCLA, 7'6" guy. Brian Stanton made the Olympic team in '88, Seoul. I trained with Brian, our little coach, Baru Elias, who's no longer with us, little Romanian guy. Who else was there? John Morris from Cal. I jumped against him all the time. He jumped 7'5". So I'm jumping against all these guys that none of them I ever beat. I beat Balkan once, and I had to PR twice in the same meet to do it. And so
Those
we
are some of the best meets, though.
yeah, but here I am at this meet. But they go down the list. They're like, here he is, former UCLA. Lee Balkin was the state record holder in the high jump. Jumped 7'3" at the state meet. They're going down the list, and then they go literally, and Troy Haines, and it was like crickets. Like, yes, thank you, thanks for coming. So happy to be here. Try the veal. It's excellent. So I mean, I was just like, okay, great. And I ended up coming in sixth because I made opening height, which was 215. So I was like, okay, I still got the press clipping. I got to jump against Sotomayor. He was amazing. Did not appear to be that fast, ran a very deep curve, and then would hit vertical like nobody's business. And if you watch him, he was almost always under rotated. The knee didn't come across that much.
Yeah,
So
his hip
kind of would go over a little bit sideways, but his hip height and rise were outrageous, and he wasn't very flexible. He just was really good at leaving that knee alone and riding it all the way up and over. I mean, I don't even remember watching him pop the hip. He didn't try to lay out. It was just kind of like, hey, I did all the work back here in the curve and the knee drive and what I call flight and knee ride, which is the same thing. Leave that knee alone all the way through flight. And then when it's time to lay out, you can do what you got to do. And what he did was usually just kind of pose. That was just kind of it. But so he was power. And then if you go down the list, I would technically have probably qualified Hollis Conway as power, even though he was 6'1" and 150. And then Charles Austin, American record holder, Olympic record holder, definite power guy, so fantastic guys all over the list that are power. But then you get to 7'11" from Joburg, different guys that jump 7'11", Stephen Holmes, single armor. But then there's Barshim. Barshim is definitely one of those guys who doesn't fit, because I'm like, for a double armor, that cat is moving like
all the way back.
Yeah. I mean, he's rambling. His really technically only a 7-step approach, right? But he's doing the hoppity skippities for a while and building up some speed, and then he's a blur. So, and I would definitely qualify him as power, but he's so light that he's got many of the characteristics, of the speed guy. So, what was the other designation you just brought up? Because we're back to the power speed, but then there was another thing. What was it? Oh,
I'm trying to remember.
You have to go back and listen. I get on these tirades where I wander off. So hey, let's talk more about you, because everybody's already heard all my stories. There's not that many. So you won the under 20 championships, and you're representing Jamaica. How does that go? I remember you told us once before, but we've got a bunch of new listeners by now. So dual heritage, all that.
Yeah. Both of my parents were raised in Kingston, Jamaica. My dad was a sprinter in high school. Sprinted a little bit at the University of Texas before he tore both of his hamstrings.
Oh,
yeah, it was a crazy story.
Oh man.
And how I first started in with like just jumping with Jamaica was after like my freshman year was, I guess, really my breakout year. 8th grade, my PR was 5'10", and then I don't know what happened. I just jumped 6'5" at my opening meet the next year.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a
huge jump. That's like 9 inches.
I was not. It kind of caught me off guard, and it was really funny how it happened, because I showed up late to the meet because I had this volunteer work that I had to do with my school, and I couldn't miss it. So I'm showing up 30 minutes late to this meet. The bar was already at like 5:10. I ended up coming in after. Like, it was just such a crazy experience. But
came in at your career best at that time. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
And then that was the year my dad he had brought up the idea. He was like, hey, like, have you ever thought about jumping or just competing for Jamaica? And I never really like had much thought, and I didn't even know that they had junior teams up until this point. So I made my first junior team. It was 2019 Crifted Games. I ended up coming third. It was a surreal experience, definitely making like my first national team, and then
Right.
also building. So that's kind of how that entire process started, and then I just kept going from there.
Okay. So now I think here's the newer part. So you're now that you've gotten out of high school, what was your career best in high school? And were
My
you
career best in high school was 216.
216? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 7-1, right?
Mm-hmm.
7-1. So you jumped 7-1 in high school, state champ.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay. So and more than one time or just one time?
Yeah. All well, I probably would have four-peated, but COVID took me out my sophomore year.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
rarefied air right there, man. It's four-time
Yeah.
state champ.
It's it haunts me to this day. And I know I definitely could have, because after my freshman year, like I was just it was just more motivation. Like I kind of got that
Mhm.
first taste of, okay, like you just won a state championship. You also medaled at your first international meet. Like this
Right.
is what you could legitimately do if you just care about it more.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
just
So what when you won it as a freshman, what did you jump?
I jumped 194.
Okay. So you definitely kept climbing up, and then COVID was terrible. I had a guy I would love to get you to jump against, Brandon. He was I had him out here. I had a jumper named Jack Weissman who went to UC San Diego, and he jumped 6'10" in high school. And at that meet, which was the Masters meet, which qualified the kids for state, there was a guy jumping at Villa Park that Jack and I had seen throughout the season, and he just kept getting better. And he wasn't beating Jack, but he was knocking on the door big time. So at that meet, he threw a jump at 6'10", which was, I mean, he was a mile out, and he just hit this jump. His foot was closed. What I call closed is not parallel to the bar plane. So he's pointed to the back corner, and I'm like, I'm not crazy about that position because in my experience, I can't see people getting their knee around from there, but he did something. He got it up there and he just missed, right? So his coach came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, Jack's going to state. My guy's going to state." He goes, "I've taught him everything I know. Would you mind working with him?" I'm like, "Absolutely. What am I going to say no? I just watched that kid throw an amazing jump at 6'10". So sure, we'll work. And he went and qualified for the final, didn't have a great last day. And then he was only a junior. So he and I start training through the summer, going through the fall. That state meet was 2019. So we're rolling around. Nobody knows COVID's coming. And at his first dual meet that year, literally the week before the pandemic hit, he jumped 6'10" at that first duel. And I'm like, dude, I thought he could jump 7'2". I really did. And shut down the season. Everything was done. And it was like, oh man. And he
Oh,
ended
it's
up going
so
to San Jose State with
Mhm.
another kid from that same state final who came in second, jumped 6'10", I think Tyler Cash. And they was like, man, I thought they were going to be just, jumping out of the building. So that would have been interesting to get there. I think he's at Cal State Long Beach now. But anyway, that would have been a nice matchup then. So you jumped 7'1" in high school, and then you were kind of going to go somewhere else, but your coach went to Tennessee, so you went to Tennessee. And then how's that gone? What are the big meets and big results since Tennessee and the 15-pound change and all that?
Definitely, yeah. So, like I said, like I didn't have the best freshman season. I think the highest I went was 211 indoor and
Mm-hmm.
out, which isn't bad, but it's just like you never want to see like going backwards.
Right, right.
So, but like this year has felt so much better, especially just like my confidence in my approach and just like my whole like my body just feels better.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really start noticing that until I think last week practice. We were doing just some four steps and I cleared 210 and I probably could have cleared 215 from four, but I just had to be a little bit more patient. I could send you the videos, honestly, but I just have to be a little bit more
Please
patient,
do. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
which is rising up. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I definitely can. So that's why I'm really excited for how the season is going to go. And I'm not even going to put any limitations on what I want to jump. I just want to jump high and have
Right.
fun. Just
Well,
going to keep
hey,
it.
that's a huge thing too. I mean, that mental the state, is like, hey, like you said, you didn't have the best. Maybe this will be your parallel year to mine. You're coming up on 2024. Be 40 years later, Brandon Pottinger all of a sudden jumps an Olympic qualifying height, goes to NC2A final. All those things. They're all out there for you. That's cool.
I would hope so. I mean, I never got to have a sophomore season because of COVID in high school. And it was actually crazy because my first meet before like everything got shut down for COVID, my sophomore year, I didn't have my high jump spikes. I don't remember why I didn't have them. So I had to end up jumping my sprinting spikes. The pit that we were jumping at, the high jump pit wasn't long enough, so I was coming off the turf, and it was also like at a decline.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
I went and jumped 6'8", and this is like no high jump spikes, no mark. I was just kind of having to figure it out, and I was so excited. Like I was like, okay, you're gonna have a great year, and then COVID happened.
Yeah, that sucks. So I'm looking right behind you on the wall, and I see the picture of you running and with your Jamaica gear on. And what I'm seeing there is a tremendous lean away from the bar angle. So I'm watching that, going, okay, I can see what's happening here with that. That's one of the things that I'm always preaching about is
Mm-hmm.
that angle.
Oh, it's I could take it. It's
It's nailed to the wall.
there we go. Oh, they're on command strips. Ugh.
All right. Those of you listening on a podcast, eventually you won't see Brandon had to rip this picture off the wall. So you're seeing a angle of him leaning away from the bar. And I'm going to bet that this is 2 steps before. So my standard take on that is most people are in that position, in a pretty good position, usually 2 steps away. And the secret to becoming a really good jumper is to be able to not only get in that position, but even maintain it, and or with 2 more steps to go, accentuate it. If you can continue to get even lower than that,
Which is insane. Oof.
that takeoff angle is tremendous. It's 2 steps early, like I said, but uh and that's the key, right? If you're coming out of that too early, you can't get as high as you were going to get.
Oof.
There it is. All
So
right, we get
that jump, like that specific jump, was the jump that won me worlds, and it was the jump that because I cleared on my second attempt. Well, technically, it was my first attempt because we had an hour and a half rain delay.
oh
Um,
man.
yeah, so the bar was at 214 when we had the like no warm up. They just said go out there and jump. Um, and I remember like just doing like my run throughs as it was still raining. And I was like, it felt weird. Like I felt oddly good. Like everyone
Mhm.
was kind of complaining while we were under the tunnel because they wanted to jump, like, which I understand. Like it's one of the biggest competitions of all of our lives. And it's like,
Right.
it's not going to stop raining. So just, you might as well just let us jump. Um, and while I was under the tunnel, I mean, I took a nap, which is weird. Everyone's warming up. And now that I look back at it, I was just like weirdly just calm about the entire thing.
Mhm.
Like everyone's trying to stay warm, stretching. I literally took a nap. Like I would never forget one of the guys from Italy waking me up saying like, "Oh, like we're about to head back out there." Because I mean, I couldn't. It was out of control. Couldn't do anything else.
That's awesome. Well, hey, at least they woke you up.
Yeah, yeah.
I could have left you in there and say, hey, we got rid of Pottinger. We left him in there sleeping. Oh, that's great. I've heard different stories about that too, where guys are so relaxed that they fall asleep and then they go out there and they're great, and I think that speaks a lot to that mental prep. Again, I tend to be a not just the mental side. I think I'm okay at that, but the angles and forces are the things that always interest me. So when you're running to get on that big of a lean, I was really curious. I got coached by right at the end of my career. I was 28 years old in 1992, and I was trying to get to the trials, which I'd never accomplished. And every 4 years, the trial height kept going up. So I was getting older. I hadn't gotten any better, and they kept going up. So I'm like, all right, you're 28. Let's take our last shot at it. And I got Doug Nordquist's old coach. Doug was a 236 jumper, jumped in the Olympics with Dwight Stones in 1984, came in fifth at the final, jumped 7'6", I think, and has one of the most impressive body lean angles like yours there, where he would he does what I call boomerang approaches, right? So the first time I saw Doug in person, he was running and he's 6'5". He's like a gazelle. He's 6'5", and he's like, couldn't have been more than 160 pounds, I don't think, and super fast, and would drop into a curve where you're like, it looked like a 45-degree angle. It was crazy. And you're watching him hit and goes, thump, and I'm just like, oh, that explains it. I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, 7'7". Okay, I get it now. And so you're watching that, and it's like, okay, I'm starting to understand that the curve does a lot more for you. It's not just, you don't just run up and curve to the bar because somebody thought that was a good idea. I
It
mean,
helps.
it's kind of started to change a little bit, over the years. But I've told my athletes, I go, look, you've got two leans going on here. You got to lean back the same way a long jumper or triple jumper does, so you don't do a front flip. And anybody that's played basketball or volleyball will tell you they don't run curves; they run straight lines, and they lean back, heel toe, and go up. And your shoulders and hips and everything stay perfectly square, because you're not going to land on your back; you're going to land on your feet, right? So you're not going to lean one way or the other because you don't want to start spinning in the air. Well, we've got the advantage of landing on our back. So I go, if you watch, you both, most guys, I really fight to try to get heel toe still, even while I'm on the curve. So you get that kind of, inside out roll and
Yeah.
the toe roll at the same time, because you're dealing with two dimensions. They go, hey, we're in three dimensions here. You got to understand. I said, if the curve wasn't important, I would just line you up at a 45 and just
Yeah.
run at a 45, lean back, drive your knee across, and do what you got to do. But you wouldn't get that catapult. I call it the catapult effect of leaning to the side. When your foot hits, it just swings you up.
A great video my coach showed me was this guy had a broomstick and he angled the
Yes.
broomstick.
Yeah, the
Just
Japanese guy, right? Throw it at the ground and it
I
does
tried
it
to do it.
over. Yep.
To this day, can't do that. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't have no idea how he was able to do it like that so effortlessly. But like it's very factual. Having that lean allows you, and especially for someone with me who I will sometimes have the tendency to um just start my approach too early, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. Like I don't allow
Yeah.
myself to reach the peak of my height. So like just exaggerating that lean in the curve definitely helps combat
Yeah.
that.
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, that angles everything. So and logically, it's one of the few times I think the American mindset, if a little bit is good, a lot more is better. I'm like, I tell my kids when we're running circles, I go, look, if I could put you like a hamster on a wheel and turn it sideways, and you were running around like a little velodrome like that, I said that would be the perfect curve, because you would be horizontal to the ground. If you could somehow hit and go up, you'd get the maximum amount of lift you can. I'm always like, when I put circles out and we're running circles, I go, I want your feet on the circle and I want the rest of you inside the circle. Like, I don't want any parts of you outside the circle. You should be way in here. And I go, now what I'm asking you is not easy. Running in a straight line is easy. You're up
Mhm.
tall, you got your knees kicking you in the butt and everything else. I said, when you drop into the curve, you're putting all your weight on one leg or the other, and you're really having to work. I go, if you watch people when they try to run on curves, their knees will stop cycling. I go, you can still kind of kick yourself in the butt, but it's really hard to get your knees up when you're leaning that hard. And then my other big contention with this, Brandon, is that when and this is why I brought up Doug Nordquist and his coach, Alan Hankel. So Alan coached Doug, and they got Doug over 7.8 3/4. He jumped 236. And
Mhm.
he jumped that on a cadaver reconstructed left knee. He blew out his ACL playing basketball. Now this is back in the 80s, where ACL reconstruction was still not super fabulous, but they basically took a cadaver knee, cadaver ACL, put it in there, stapled it, roughed it up, and you do your rehab in your back. So he did that and jumped 236 on that knee. Now, when Alan was working with me, he said, and one of the parts that, as we were training, and I tell this story for a couple reasons, so bear with me. But anyway, we're coming down the plane of the bar, and he was telling me, he goes, look, one of your problems, the reason that you come out of your curve too early, is you start looking at the bar, or you're still looking at the bar as you're running your curve. So
Mhm.
as you're on your turn mark, like you and I know, you're looking at your turn mark, you're not looking at the bar yet. I'm running straight. Then I drop into my curve, and I wasn't aware that I was actually looking at anything. I just kind of ran around and did what I'd done since I was 12 years old. I started jumping, in sixth grade. So there I am jumping. He goes, we need to get your focus to where you're looking down at the far standard. Okay. And that way, when you're leaning, you'll stay in your tilt better. And I'm like, and that, I mean, we worked on that for a year, and unfortunately it was a crash course. I had kind of set my limit at, hey, I'm 28. I still hadn't a real job. I hadn't done anything. I was just, living and training. I used to work as a bartender. I used to work as a waiter, and I would train when I could. And, it wasn't a well thought out deal, but I was surviving and, outside of the UCLA umbrella, which is another interesting thing that you haven't experienced yet because you're there at the school. You've got all your resources. You got a great
Yeah.
training facility. You got the medical staff there. If you roll your ankle, I did that playing intramural basketball, which of course we weren't supposed to do. And I went hopping into the training room on one foot and stuck my foot in the ice whirlpool, right? These are the things that nobody knows about. You're not supposed to tell. But, that's real different. So I'm training on my own and he's teaching me this. And man, it was a struggle. I mean, because I'd been jumping since I was 12 and I didn't know what I was looking at all those years. I just did what I did.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, it's like, hey, you got to look down here. And like, I got it, but I couldn't get it. It was like, it was just too fast. Like I needed some time to adjust. I just couldn't make it work. I actually teach it all the time now because I have seen when we do boomerangs, and I call it that, and also just circle runs.
Yeah.
When I get people running on a circle and I go, look, I'm going to put the circle right next to the bar where you would be jumping. But I want you to run your curve. And when you're running your curve, you don't look off the curve. You look at the curve. You're running the curve and you're trying to stay on the line. And I'm saying, hey, I want both of your feet to hit on the line all the way around. You're not going to be missing going on and off the curve. And I said, your left foot's going to swing over in front of your right. That gives you that kind of that drop in feeling as you're going. You keep swinging that up. Your outside foot comes around, the inside foot slides across. Boom. So you really drop in there and you're still running it. I said, now, the only thing that's going to bring you out of there is if you all of a sudden peek that head up. As soon as your head comes from here to here, there we go. So I'm like, just stay over here. I said, don't look at the bar. I said, you know where the bar is. When you're coming around the corner, your peripheral vision, you'll see the pit and the bar. So all you got to do is train yourself to be over here. And I had both Jack and Kyle Jenkins running full approaches like that. And I would measure their body lean angles, and they're twice what they would be on a normal jump because they weren't looking at the bar. They were looking over here. Now, one of the differences when you're running a curve, you're on your toes. You're not going heel, toe, heel, toe. So I'll try to get them a couple times to go, okay, remember as you come through here, it's going to be, roll, roll, and do that and see if they can stay in that position. And then invariably in the high jump, as they're coming around on a real jump, they'll come out because they're looking at the bar. But I have had a couple people buy in and stay there and hit. And I'm telling you, the difference in takeoff and hitting vertical is huge because that angle doesn't lie. If you go from a 40-degree lean to a 20-degree lean and you're already coming up as you hit your plant, now you've started that swing and it's really hard to stop.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about this. When you look at that picture again, we see it in the background perfectly here. So, but I'm looking at that and I'm saying that's at least a 30-degree lean. Okay. Mm-hmm. My contention also is that line is where everything needs to go. Like the force that you apply from your leg, I think should try to go back on that angle, which most people wouldn't think of that. They go, I'm jumping away from the bar. I'm like, no, you won't be able to jump away from the bar, but we want to apply force that direction because you're a missile going that way. I'm picturing you, tall, strong, fast kid. You're flying at the pit. There's nothing really stopping you from landing in the pit. I'm sure you could tell everybody stories. How many times have you gone up and then missed the pit? Unless jumping out of it is one thing, but going up and crossing the plane, right? That never happens. You always do that. So my thing is I'm trying to get everybody to drive back on that same lean angle you are, even arms, body lean, torso, knee drive, especially, right? Everything back and across. And then by the time you finish hitting vertical, they all just kind of blend. And if you're lucky, all your long bones are pointed straight up. They start from here and they go here. I say your body's a representation of all those pieces.
What helped me the most, honestly, was like just getting my body position or just getting my body in a better position. Was my coach just tells me to just stare at the left because I come from the right side. Just stare at the top of the left standard. As soon as you you start your curve, stay at the top of left standing. It just allows me to just get my hips around in the curve,
Mm-hmm.
actually run my curve a little better. And then just now I'm already in a better position for the takeoff. So
Mm-hmm.
just so much easier.
Yeah. So you're at the top of the left standard. See, I think that's a staple. That's for me, that's what you're talking about. Like when you get them early, like I'm saying, first, man, within 5 jumps. I had this one girl at this meet this year. The coach goes, "Can you come down and help us with this eighth grade meet?" I go, "Yeah, sure." I go walking down there, and there's this 5'8". She looks like a volleyball player. Just kind of bounces up there, runs a nice curve, and goes bink. And I was like, I just walked straight up, and I'm like, I'm in recruit mode. I didn't have anything with me because I just walked out there. But I go, hey, I go, next time you run up, drive your knee this way. And I demonstrated. And fortunately, she's a total kinesthetic. She was just like, oh, okay. She didn't say anything. She didn't say, who are you? What are you talking about? She runs back. The bar couldn't have been, maybe 4-4 or something. And she
Yeah.
just runs back and she goes right up with the single. And the knee drive comes across and she just goes straight up and just, and she could see it on her face. She was like, oh, that really worked. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I got all kinds of tricks like that. I was like, so I was on immediate recruit mode with her, but I've been able to lay down, single arm takeoff, knee drive up and across, opposite eyes to the opposite standard, because that was, she doesn't know anything else. You know what I mean? From the very get go, you didn't have to say, no, no, don't have your eyes go here, then here, just go here. It's like, okay, you're just looking down here and you start laying down that groundwork, immediately. So that's fun if you can get it. What was my question from you next? We're talking all these great technical things. Um, if you go, this is the big question. If you make it,
Yes, sir.
whose trials are you going to jump at?
Oh,
Because there's
definitely
U.S. trials and there's Jamaican trials. So
for sure. Yeah. I think it would be an amazing experience, especially if I'm fortunate enough to make that Olympic team. Also, like one of my good friends, Remain Bedford. I know he's definitely going to be making that team again.
mm-hmm.
He had an amazing outbreak season last year. Um, but it started with jumping 227 indoor or
Mm,
226, 227 indoor. Then he spoke to me a little bit about like his outdoor work. He said he wasn't having like the best outdoor season coming off like this like huge like 226 indoor jump. Um, and then literally I think the highest he jumped all outdoor going up until nationals maybe like 217. And then he told me he was like honestly like I had nothing to lose. I'm already a national champion. All I have to do is go out there and just have fun. And watching his 228 jump, it just looks effortless. Just
right,
oh my goodness. Wow. So
right.
definitely would love to jump for Jamaica.
Awesome. Yeah, that's just my thing is here, and this I know part of the raise the bar. I'm like, I've had my high school kids on now. I've had some of the local kids. The kid I was talking about who jumped 6'10" at the state meet this last year at UCSD, got over 7 feet for the first time as a senior, and he was stoked. And I was like, Jack, I get him on and we talk. I just have that in my heart, the thing that I'm, still striving for since I didn't get there. I didn't get to go to the trials. I just love hearing people talk about, training and working and even just to me, just having the goal to me just seems like this noble, incredible purpose,
Mhm.
achieving that goal is amazing, right? No matter whose country you're jumping for. I've had Barbara Bachaka on here, trained her. She's from Canada. She went to the trials without me and then increased her PR when she was down here, and we're all ready to go. I'm like, we got this next year, man. Let's go. I'm excited. I want to go. And even if I'm not there, I'm going to be heavily living vicariously through those that are, right, as much as you can. Um, so tell us a little bit about your training. What's going on there? You said there's a big changeover, from what you did in high school.
Yeah.
How did you get that strength to weight ratio back up? What kind of lifting you guys do?
Well, uh honestly, I was really just more so just taking the weight room seriously. Like my, well, the main list we normally do are like traditional back squats, front squats, power cleans, clean jerks, clean hang clean jerks, split cleans, and then the jumpers will do like jump oriented stuff. So we'll do like jump squats. We'll do split squats on
Hmm.
like maybe I think a 3-inch slab. Just get a
Hmm.
little bit of elevation. Um, what else do we normally do? That's for right now. That's all the list we've done this year. Um, like we'll bench too and like do other upper body
Hmm.
stuff. But like for me, just getting my power to weight ratio back up was definitely just taking the weight room seriously. Like I don't feel like I really took it seriously last year.
Hmm.
Like my squat was 245 for two last year.
Hmm.
That's the heaviest I ever went. And I like barely was able to even get that.
Hmm.
Uh, and then just recently I was able to do 275 for three and I was moving it like butter.
Right.
So honestly, just like taking the weight room seriously, understanding that, like, for example, when we'll have like hamstring curls at the end of our workouts, like actually do the hamstring curls, like actually push myself because I know like
Right.
working out each individual muscle is definitely beneficial and will help my, for example, like my squats or just my
Yeah.
power stuff like that.
So here's my question then. Traditional Olympic lifts, for the most part, how deep do you go on those? Are you getting to parallel? Are you starting the season at parallel and then getting higher and higher as you go? Or are you going to
Um,
stay down there?
we stay at parallel the
Hmm.
entire throughout the year. Which is it's really funny for one of the more taller guys on the team. I somehow get the furthest depth in the weight room. I
Hmm.
don't know, it's just something that I've always been very prideful of. I feel like, I mean, when our weight room coach tells us to get depth, I think we should probably be doing depth.
Right.
And also like if I have to drop the weight to get stronger, like that's something I'll make the sacrifice. Like I rather actually have proper power behind me
Hmm.
rather than just like, oh, I can squat this much. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Are you guys putting any emphasis on once you get your base through your two-legged stuff? Are you switching to any one-legged stuff, like one-legged squats,
Mhm.
one-legged goblet
We
squats?
do Bulgarians a lot. We do
Mhm.
a lot of Bulgarians. I'm trying to think of what other one
Any
legged stuff.
variations of cleans, or like I know step ups and lunges kind of invariably are already one-legged lifts, but like I've been watching a lot of the Europeans doing these standing, one-legged cleans or one-legged snatch, not real heavy, but
Yeah,
quick,
but
that
quick.
kind of stuff.
Um,
Um,
no, a lot of the one leg stuff, like we'll do step overs, we'll do lunges, barbell lunges. We'll do like
mhm.
leg press. Um, I'm trying to think of the other single leg stuff. Bulgarians.
Yeah, I
So
just think there's a lot of times I keep telling the kids, I go, I love the two-legged stuff. I was built on it, from especially squats, hang cleans. Wasn't crazy about front squats because I didn't have the best shoulders for that. So I couldn't do a lot of weight doing that. I kind of like the emergence of the goblet squat now. I would probably do more of those if I could, although that's gonna be limited by how heavy of a goblet you can pick up, like as far as that goes. But um the single leg stuff I find interesting because I can't find a place in the high jump where you're using both legs at the same time, except when you're doing backovers. So that's why I've developed. I don't know if I invented this, but I'm the only one that I see doing it a lot. I have my kids doing one-legged backovers, where
I
you're
have.
standing there ready to go, and I'm like,
I
okay,
was
well, stand
wondering
on your
why.
takeoff foot and drive your knee up with your hands, and it's the same thing, right? And then you can work on your layup. So
Interesting.
yeah, just as a, because it's difficult. I don't know if you've ever had that. If you've ever seen somebody that I don't know if you've had any coaching experience yet, like if you go back and volunteer at your school or something like that, or you had even the opportunity, because I think all of us, as you're jumping, you have those times somebody asks you a question, you give them your opinion, you go look like this. But I've seen people do outrageous backovers. I mean, where they jump up and, great takeoff position with both arms up, hips are up. They pop their hands back to the hips, head goes back. I mean, perfect rainbow arc, right? And I'm just like, oh my gosh, okay, that was great. So I'm like, I'm working with a kid for the first time and they throw me a back over like that. I'm like, oh, awesome. And we go right into a one leg and they never look like that. They don't have anything where they drive up and go. And I'm like, well, what's the difference? I'm like, well, their legs are different. One leg's pushing, the other one's going up. So I got to stop that knee and I got to ride it. And then I'm going to have to bring it back down. And then some people learn how to punch their hips and some don't. Some people just drop that knee a little bit passively, and whatever it is. I've had kids in perfect rainbow, and then when they're doing it the other way, they're too good at it. Like right in the middle of their takeoff, they're popping that hip down. And I've seen people go into that early position that looks like a C instead of, the rainbow. And so they're almost in full arc and they haven't even left the ground yet. And it's kind of a paradox, but they don't rotate any faster. They rotate slower because the knees and the hips and the center of mass are actually down lower and they haven't finished rising yet. So they kind of just stall and then they start coming around and then invariably they just pull their legs up. And that's why I'll see the reverse, the V position. And I'm like, how do we get in that position out of that beautiful rainbow arc you did off 2 feet? I'm like, oh man. So it's taught me, I've learned a lot watching that drill where I'm like, maybe I can circumvent this whole process by taking the 2-legged back over out. As much as I like it, as much as I did it, like everybody else. I saw one dude on a feed one time from, I want to say Finland or one of the European countries. Guy no, he's Greek. I think he's from Greece. 2 meters on a back over, 2-footed. I was like, what?
How tall is he?
He was pretty tall, but still.
That's still really impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 meters off a back over. I was like, good golly, I got to see it. I'm almost sure I stuck it in my saved folders, which are like extensive now on Instagram. They're like, I don't know if I've used all the memory they have available for me or what, but yeah, that was an eye opener because I'm like, I've had that happen to me. I don't know if that happens to you. I'm like, I don't think I'll ever see anybody scrape their foot and jump over 7'4". Beaten big time. I was at the Mount Sac meet 2 years ago and the kid from SC Seals was jumping. And there was another guy there, I can't even remember his name, who had graduated from Texas Tech. He was there unattached. He jumped 5 1/4 and huge foot scrape, brings that knee up. And I'm watching him go 7'5 1/4. I'm like, dang. And then this other guy I just lucked into, because I watch my feed all the time on Instagram. And I see this tall, rangy kid, Fabian Delrid from Sweden, comes up and, he's jumping. And I'm looking at it going, man, that bar looks low, for a guy that tall. Well, he's 6'9". He's literally tall. And it wasn't that low. It was like 7'7". And he's jumped 7'6" or 7'7", and he's a foot scraper. And he started off as a single armor. Interestingly enough, he did a breakdown for me. We did a fun post. He sent me his stuff from when he was under 14 all the way up. And he's this tall, skinny kid, and he's running up and he's doing the single. And then somewhere along the line, right after like 6'10" or something, he switched to power. And now he's jumped, I think he's jumped 233.
Yeah.
So
that double arm, it just works.
Right. It's interesting to me too, because the other thing I have about the single is I go, well, what are the advantages of the single? And this is the whole power versus speed thing. I go, well, you're faster. Invariably, I go, it's easier to running than it is to go gather. And as soon as you gather and swing both arms together, that's abnormal for running. Nobody does that when they're running full speed. So I go, you really have to be able to do quite a bit of things to maintain at worst or accelerate at best while doing a 2-arm, because it's not conducive to actually accelerating, I don't think, as opposed to someone who's just running with their arms like this. If I run, arm goes up and just keep going, that's smoother, easier. So I see really great acceleration patterns. And then the tall, skinny types that get that arm up, I go, what is the advantage of that? I used to think, what is the advantage? The speed, yeah, but not everybody can turn speed into lift. So does it help me with my lean? Like if I get that arm up here and I'm leaning, maybe it helps me stay over here. I don't know. It's just thought. And then I'm like, but my center of mass has to be higher at takeoff, not necessarily, let me rephrase that, at heel strike. When you hit your foot on the ground and your arm's up above your head, you have to be taller. You have to have a higher center of mass, because if you're, depending on the beefy size of your arm, but if you pick that thing up and get it significantly up above your head, I'm 6'3". I put my arms up, I got to be 7 something, I don't know
Mhm.
what. So I'm like, if you're 6'9" and this arm comes up, that's one thing. Well, he's got them both back now. I go, the disadvantages are what? I'm for a double armor like yourself and myself, we're going to be a tad bit slower. We're going to have a lower center of mass, because if I got both hands behind me and down below my hips, that's going to lower my center of mass, right? I'm running a decent curve. Let's do all that. But now as I come up through, I go, there's a significant change in your center of mass, because you got both arms coming up with the knee drive all at the same time. That's the power game right there. And you got to, in my mind, those arms are important. Like you're seeing bench press, throwing the medicine balls up overhead. I like doing the arms, doing step ups. When you're doing step ups, I'll drive the arms up also. Sometimes you got a heavy barbell on your back, you can't use your arms. But I say,
Mhm.
hey, let's carry dumbbells pretty heavy and drive those puppies up there, and then so you got 3 lifters as opposed to someone whose arm is already up. I go, for my money, if this arm's already up here, I can't really jump with this arm.
Mhm.
It depends on where it is. That's another argument I have, is like, where is it? If it hits here, and you're going like this with it, you're kind of in the middle. It's not
Mhm.
really a single arm in my estimation, if you're using it for lift at all. But for me, a power jumper should have both hands, back behind
Yeah.
them. And I've thought about that, because if both your arms are behind you, to me, that would help you stay
Right. Yeah.
back, right? So it's a great, interesting game of, physics between the power and the speed. And then this whole single leg, I'm calling it a single leg revolution, because I'm watching a lot of single leg stuff,
Mhm.
a lot of single leg stuff. And then power plyos is reaching, new heights. I'm watching a lot of lateral and backwards plyos. I don't know if you guys do that. I like to have my kids jump off a box and jump backwards up onto the box. Again, pushing quickly back against where I'm running, uh,
Mhm.
and laterally, which is really weird. If you do these, you got to jump off the box and hit on your left leg and push to the left off your left leg and jump back up onto the box. An idea. I've been throwing those around for a while. Whether or not they intuitively, to me, I go, I think this is right. I don't have any data, but I'm making us do it anyway. So I'm like,
It
as
works.
much as I like the 2-footed stuff, I try to get them to doing one, as much as possible. With the added thing, I usually go, okay, if we're going to do 10 reps with 2 legs, you're going to do 5 with one, because the, it's too much. You do too much high volume, you know. There's another thing we can talk about. How's your do you ever have any problems with shin splints, knees, anything like that?
Um, my IT band just gets tight on my left leg a lot, so like it'll just feel like my knee's really tight. So I
Mhm.
just have to roll out a lot. The Theragun helps. That's something that I noticed.
Yeah.
I'm just hitting like along like where the IT band meets in between like my quads and my hamstring.
Mhm.
My shins, uh, like they're not as bad as they were last year. I definitely do think it's because like I'm doing a better job of like strengthening my ankles.
Right.
Because it's have
Front
nice.
and back, right? Calves and tibialis anterior. You do a lot of the tib band work, or the tibialis anterior, the 2 foot. Yeah.
It's gonna sound the same. I do like 100 on each leg every day. It's just
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I just had horrible shin pain last year and I hated it. So
Right. The knees
uh,
over toes guy, that's your guy right there. If you do that tibialis and anterior stuff, for sure.
mhm,
I think
definitely.
about the knee stuff too. When he does, I love the backward walking. I did this. I don't know if you're my knees. I've never had a knee problem per se. I did overtrain my senior year. It was my senior year, and I went crazy. Plyos had just come out. This is 1986. We were doing just killer volume, and I was in good shape. And so I didn't really notice anything. It was right at the end of the year where we just kept pushing the envelope, and I was lifting and I was running and I was doing heavy plyos. And we got to that NC2As, and right before that, all of a sudden, man, both knees. Like I got up one morning and I felt like I was 100. Like my knees were just aching, and I'm just like, "What's going on?" They're like, "Oh, you got patellar tendonitis." I'm like, "What?" I always had shin splints in high school. That was it. I'd never done anything to my knees. And it was like, oh, you're just, you're doing too much volume. Like, oh, okay. Well, now what? Well, now you got to rest. I'm like, I can't rest. I got Pac-10s next week. I got nationals coming up. It was like, that was the worst time for that to happen. So I was like, now, all these years later, I keep learning all these things about overtraining. And then I'm like, nobody told me at the time. It would have been great if somebody said, while you're doing all these heavy plyos, you should be taking at least one full, hips down immersion ice bath every
Mhm.
week, get that swelling out of there. So that's huge. I would highly recommend that if you haven't done that yet. And it's no piece of cake, right? The first 3 minutes are hell. And anybody out there, if you've never sat in an ice bath before, you're in for a treat. That first three
This,
minutes.
this is gonna sound crazy, but I honestly like taking ice baths. I've been notorious for falling asleep in them.
Really?
Yeah, like after a really hard workout.
Uh-huh.
Like I don't know. It just got to the point to where ice baths, like for me, it was just like getting in, and then it was just fine. Like after that, everything was just fine.
Yeah. I call
Uh,
it blessed numbness.
yeah,
Right.
don't move. Like
Yeah.
I literally just can't feel anything.
Yeah. It's
I
nice.
also like getting in like the Thera boots.
Hmm.
Those help a lot.
Yeah, it's all swelling. I mean, you basically got to kill the nerve endings. But I keep telling everybody too. I go, your recovery bar is kind of like a video game. Like I love Tekken, right? So playing Tekken, you're going along, your power bar drops, boom, somebody hits you and you drop, right? This power bar goes out, and then you're just pressing your buttons, trying to get back up, and all of a sudden your guy gets up and the power bar goes, but it only fills up like halfway back. And I go, that to me is the perfect picture of when you're training, right? And you drain your power bar, and
Yeah.
then at night you do your exercises, you do whatever, you eat. You're a young student, you got to eat well, you got to get your sleep, because I know your workouts are harder than they were in high school, right? So you're like,
Oh, significantly harder.
that first year when I was at UCLA, man, I'm telling you, I was like, I slept like a stone. Like I would get that bell would go off for like get up at 8 to go to your 9 o'clock math class, and I'm just like, what is that noise? Oh my god, like I need to sleep. So getting your sleep, eating right, right, and then your training and your recovery. But it's like the power bar starts to fill up, and then you drain it again. And I go, it never comes back all the way unless you take the time. You really got to take the time and put in the energy to get it to recover, because it's otherwise you just eventually you'll go, that power bar will get down, you get a knockout or you get a break, something worse will happen to you.
Yeah.
So tell us real quickly before I let you go. I know it's you're getting close to, you got to be close to kickoff down there sometime.
Yeah. I'm
My
actually
Niners are playing today. So what's your goals for this season? I know you said that you're kind of loose. You're saying you just want to have fun, but if somebody put a gun to your head and said, "What do you really want to get?" What do you got?
Oh, actually, I have a goal list on my wall, so I'm looking at right now.
Okay,
So one of the goal lists is to jump 224 by the end of indoor and 226 by the end of outdoor.
awesome. And that's Olympic qualifying height is 226, correct?
Oh, Olympic qualifying height is I think it might be like 233, something like ridiculous. But
That I have to
not
tell, yeah.
not that many people.
Trial height, not Olympic height.
Mm-mm. Yeah, no, definitely. But not that many people actually get over 233. So like, for
Right,
example,
that's huge.
I think a couple guys who jumped 227, 228 last year made it through to Worlds. So
Mhm. Yeah, it's tough. The higher end is higher. I know that the Olympic trials standards, there's an A standard and a B standard,
yeah.
right? So I think the B standard is down at 220. And then if they don't get enough of the people over 225 or 226, they'll say, okay, you guys down here at 220 can come in also, right? Which again, they never had when I was doing it. I'm still mad. I could have made 2.5. I did that a few times. So what's your current personal best is
216.
216, which was your high school 771. And then last year wasn't your best, but you jumped 611 at the right time. And then now you're on the training path. You've got a young buck pushing you and you're learning from, which is awesome that you're humble enough to learn from somebody younger. I know there could be a little bit of, hey, I'm the man around here. Um,
Uh, um, Sometimes in life, you just have to put your pride aside if you really want to become the best.
right.
And that's
That's
easy.
awesome. Well, hey, Brandon, I really appreciate your time. And thank you for your patience. I know last week we had our hiccup trying to get together and forgot that you were 3 hours away and not two. But I might have done that the first time too. I can't remember. I was following the text chain back and forth and I was like, 7, 9. Okay. So it was 2 hours and then I didn't read any farther. So that one's on me. But hey, I appreciate your time and I love talking the technical stuff with you. I'm a big
Always.
fan of your work. Please send me the videos. I would love to do an analysis post of you where I will, draw some pretty lines on things and go, hey, look at Brandon doing this. And, so send your best stuff with the best views. That straight shot that you have of you running there with you and your Jamaica togs, when you're coming around that corner, that's my favorite shot down the bar because I can see that lean to the side angle. I can see the knee drive come up and across. We can see how you hit vertical, all that stuff. Usually, and your layout positions, all that. I don't even know. I was just looking through. Like this might be the first time I actually watched some of your videos. The other time, has it already been a couple years? I think you're one of my first guests. So yeah, I didn't talk to you at all last year. So we got to have the Brandon Pottinger catch up from time to time. So let us know how you're doing. I'd love to see, practice jumps. And then I don't know if you have a videographer for you guys at your big meets. We used to have a guy shooting ours in old black and white when I was at UCLA with the 8 millimeter film, which was actually nice. You had to be in the room and put it in there to watch, but it was very clear. And when you went frame by frame, but I don't think that stuff exists anymore. So, and the phones are so good. You can get great video right there on your phone. So, but we'll look forward to seeing that. And best of luck, man. I'm a big fan. I hope the world for you. Just hoping and praying you get to go to the Olympics. What a great dream that is.
I really do too.
All right, sir. Well, hey, thanks again, and we'll be talking soon. Send them. You can either I'll send you my email, but most of the stuff comes through pretty good on Instagram. If it doesn't, I'll send you something and go, hey, these came out fuzzy, and we'll figure out another way.
Cool.
All right.
Great
Thank
talking to
you,
you.
Brandon. Hey, good luck training, man. Keep pushing hard.
Thank you.
All right, sir. Talk soon. And that's going to wrap it up here on Raise the Bar. Had a great time talking with young Brandon Pottinger. He's a dual citizen, I believe, of the U.S. and Jamaica. We didn't get a detailed story of his dad blowing out both of his hamstrings. He used to be a sprinter for Jamaica. Brandon has some lofty goals. He jumped 7'1" in high school, was a 3-time state champ, probably would have been 4 except for COVID his sophomore year. Jumped 7'1" in high school, which is rarefied air, and is ready to bust out here his sophomore year at the University of Tennessee. He's a volunteer. And then hopefully does well indoors and outdoors and gets himself in an Olympic trial qualifying height along the way. Great young man, very humble, very wise already, and just can't wait to see what happens in the future for him. So closing out this Sunday, December 3rd, 2023. I'm Troy Haines here on Raise the Bar. It's been my pleasure to talk with Mr. Pottinger and with you about the high jump, how to train for it, and exciting things that have happened, and some old boring stories about the dinosaur me. So until next time, signing off.